Hello and welcome, my name is NOVARIS and today I'd like to speak to you about the Magicka Sorcerer build for the Wolfhunter DLC. There's a couple differences between this build and the previous build from last patch, but I will be going over that in more detail later on, and I'll also make a note of that in the description. So at the moment I'm running Witchmothers Potent Brew, I have the Thief Mundus Stone, and I am a stage 4 vampire. In the video I'd like to go over a few things, so it'll be the DPS Parses first, gear setup, skill points, champion points, and then I'll finish it off with the rotation. Okay, so let's talk about the gear setup. So on the front bar I have the Inferno Staff of Scathing Mage with a shock damage enchantment and an infused trait. So the biggest change here is that I'm no longer using a flame damage enchantment on the front bar. For the 5th piece bonus we're going to get spell damage. When we do critical we have a 20% chance of gaining that spell damage, and it can carry over both bars, so it doesn't matter when it procs. On the back bar I'm running the Maelstrom's Inferno Staff with a flame damage enchantment and an infused trait. So this is instead of the Berserker enchantment. I have additional damage to my light and heavy attacks when I put down Wall of Elements, so it's a very useful weapon to have in conjunction with that skill, Blockade of Fire. So I have 2 pieces of Zaans. So the monster set can be replaced with Valkynscoria, for example, or Elambris. I'll show another result with Elambris, but you want 1 heavy and 1 medium. You can also opt for infused for the large pieces, and then I've got 5 pieces of Sirorias. The reason that I have light and heavy and medium monster pieces is because of the Siroria. So I have 3 Scathing Mage pieces, 1 Bloodthirsty and 2 Arcane. All of them have spell damage glyphs on them, and all the gear has Magicka glyphs on them. Okay, so let's talk about the skills. So in the front bar I'm running Liquid Lightning as my first skill. It's a very useful skill because it lasts for 10 seconds, so considering that it is relatively cheap, it also provides someone else in the group with a synergy, a conduit synergy, which deals damage and returns resources to them. Another added benefit of using this skill and any other storm calling skill is the passives. So I have access to the Expert Mage passive, giving me more spell damage for having the skill slotted, and the Implosion passive, so I get additional damage in the execute phase, so under 15% health. The next skill I'd like to talk about is Crystal Fragments. It's a slightly unusual and unique skill in the sense that you only want to be using this when it's procced, and by proccing I don't mean hard casting the skill. I don't mean just pressing the skill as a part of a set rotation. You want to alternate this between Elemental Weapon and the procced Crystal Fragments. So just to show you what I mean, this is hard casting the skill, and this is when it's procced. So if you notice, it's a lot quicker animation. It's also going to cost us half the amount and do 10% more damage. Because it's a dark magic ability, we also get back health, 10% of our maximum health when we use these skills. So it is a very useful thing to have. Plus it gives everyone else in the group minor prophecy, so it's very, very useful. The next skill we have here, and this is our spammable, we'll be using this most of the time, is Elemental Weapon. By itself it doesn't do damage, but if you use it in conjunction with light attacks, it adds around 8k base magic damage on top. It also has a chance to apply burning, concussed or chilled elemental status effects. Because it's a Sigil Order ability, we also have access to the passives, so we get more damage from Spell Orb. When we hold block, we get a damage barrier. And whenever we're casting a Sigil Order ability, if it's a channel time ability, so that would be like channeled acceleration, then we get damage mitigation, 30% more damage mitigation. So I've replaced Inner Light here with Mage's Wrath. Some of you might prefer not to do this, but I've found that under 20% health it does a massive amount more damage than the other options, so that would be Elemental Weapon. And it does cost very similar Magicka, slightly more, but it will be worth the return. And also it is a storm calling ability, so it will get access to the Implosion passive when you're using it under 20% health. Sorry, 15% health. Okay, so it's also worth mentioning that I could replace that skill with Inner Light. So the next skill is Bound Aegis. Like Inner Light, it's just there to give us more resources. It gives us 8% more maximum Magicka. And there is some passive properties. So for example, we're getting some resistances, but also because it's a Daedric summoning skill, we will also have a reduced cost to our ultimates, and also we get some more health and stamina recovery. Health recovery is obviously a lot more important for us. I also have Fiery Rage on the front bar, and the purpose behind that is so that I have a Destruction Staff ability on both bars. So the back bar would be Blockade of Fire for trials. The reason that I have one on both bars is so that I have access to the passive Ancient Knowledge, giving us 8% more damage to single target abilities. So that would be like Elemental Weapon, Crystal Fragments, etc. So in the back bar I have Haunting Curse. This is a very, very high damage skill. So after 3.5 seconds it does just under 12k magic damage. And then after a further 8.5 seconds it procs again for the same amount, so just under 12k magic damage again. A very, very useful skill to use, but you do need to allow both procs to happen. So after that 12 seconds has completed, then you can reactivate the skill, otherwise you'll lose damage. It's a Daedric summoning ability, so we have access again to the same passives. So that'd be Daedric protection. So on the back bar we have Blockade of Fire, and as I'd mentioned before with the items, or the gear that we have, it will work very well in conjunction with the staff, the Maelstrom's Infernal Staff. So we will also do extra damage. If an enemy is burning, they'll take 20% more damage from that skill. So the next skill is Elemental Drain. This provides us with minor Magicka Steel, but obviously for trials where we don't need the minor Magicka Steel ourselves, we will use a shield. So at the moment I've got Dampen Magic, but you could also use the other morph and just use that in place of Elemental Drain. So I've bound Aegis again just for the maximum Magicka, and then I have Channeled Acceleration, a very useful skill because it works at a range and it gives us access to minor force for 36 seconds. Before the Summerset patch this wasn't available to us, and for just over half a minute we have an 10% more damage. So I have Shooting Star in the back bar. You could actually also use, instead of Shooting Star, you could also use Greater Storm Aternach if you want to provide some more group utility. If you see here, it gives you Major Berserk, so that gives you gives one of your allies more damage for 8 seconds. Okay, so I'm just going to go over the champion points. So I have 61 points into Elfborn, 56 points into Elemental Expert, 21 points into Spell Erosion. I have 66 points into Master at Arms and 16 points into Staff Expert, and then finally I have 40 points into Thaumaturge. So I'm just going to show the rest of the CP just now, but you should know that these can change depending on what content you're doing, so it's something that you should really decide upon yourself before proceeding with the content. Okay, so I'm just going to go over the rotation section. If you want to, you could pause the video here, make a note, take a screenshot, that kind of thing, just if you want to practice on your own time. It's a fairly simple rotation in comparison to some of the other builds, but I'm just going to demonstrate the full rotation for you all to see. I just want to thank you for watching the video, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you.